Thank you, Pastor Whitmer. It is great to be here with you this evening. And what I want to do is I want to start with a PowerPoint presentation here. And just to let you know, it's not my normal missionary PowerPoint that I would show a normal congregation that more or less, talks about what we do and so forth. This is more of a presentation in general on campus ministry and how to do it. And so I've entitled it Reaching Collegiates for the Sake of His Name. So seeing that you guys are right next to the University of Delaware and seeing that I know your pastor has a burden to reach college students there, and I know many of you do as well, I just want to give you some nuts and bolts, maybe an overview of what we do, some things that have worked for us, maybe some ideas that you might be able to incorporate here. And so, again, this is going to be probably a little bit longer than what it would normally be when I show slides. But I want to talk about reaching secular college students. And first of all, twofold outline, very simple here. Number one, why to reach students, and number two, how to reach students. And with the why, there's three parts of that: the nature of our commission, the needs of our campuses, and that part will sort of be a little bit of a review of some of the things I said this morning, so we won't take a long time with that, but also the name of Christ. First of all, the Great Commission, we're all familiar with it. It occurs in all four Gospels in the book of Acts. This is the account Luke gives us in the book of Acts. But again, it tells us that we should be witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and into the uttermost parts of the earth. Simply put, if we are fulfilling the Great Commission properly, we're going to start across the street and then work our way around the world. So it has both a local aspect and then an aspect of it where you take the gospel to the ends of the earth. Now let me ask a question. Where is it possible to do both of these at one and the same time and place? In other words, go across the street and around the world at one and the same time. For instance, do you know of a mission field where individuals can be evangelized from all over our country, where you can find hundreds of people from nations all over the globe, where tomorrow's leaders can be reached today, and that is typically located within driving distance of a fundamental church like this one? There's actually over 4,400 of these mission fields right here in the United States of America, over 19 million individuals on those mission fields, including almost 700,000 internationals, many of which are from countries that we can't even go to as traditional missionaries. China and India happen to be the two largest student delegations in the United States. You can't go to either as a missionary. Now, granted, you can go to China and teach English, or you can support a national in India, but if you tell them, I'm a missionary, I want to get in, it's not going to happen. But yet their best and their brightest are right here in our country. And could you name that mission field? And of course, I'm talking about our nation's colleges and universities. Now, moving on, not only we're talking about the nature of our commission, our college campuses represent, therefore, an opportunity to fulfill the entire Great Commission in one time and place, and therefore should be a very strategic part of our missions outreach and our goals. And this is what I talked about briefly this morning. Is there a biblical precedent for reaching students in this manner? And if you were here this morning, we talked about Acts chapter 19, verses 8 to 10. For the sake of time, I won't review all that. But once again, Paul, when he was in Ephesus, he actually met in the school of Tyrannus. He started in the Jewish synagogue. He got kicked out of the synagogue. He began meeting, teaching, and preaching in the school of Tyrannus. In essence, I believe establishing the first campus ministry right there on the college campus. So I think there is precedent for meeting in that way. Also, we looked at this morning from Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 to 38. Speaking of the Lord's ministry when he was here on the earth, let me just read that. Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then saith he unto his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest that he would send forth laborers into his harvest. And college students, I believe, are much like sheep without a shepherd. Again, many of them away from home for the first time. They're deciding for themselves what they're going to believe. They're deciding for themselves what their worldview will be, what their philosophy of life will be. And again, they need guidance from a good shepherd at this point in their life. And again, I would suggest that they're going to be more open at this point in their lives than they will ever be again in the future, because they are thinking about a lot of new things. There's a lot of new ideas they're being exposed to. They're sort of experimenting with things. And again, after they get out of college and get into a good job and they're sort of more set in their ways, it's going to be much harder to reach them with the gospel. So this is a very logical, a very good time to reach people with the gospel. Not that we don't want to reach everyone, but it's an excellent time. Here's some of the problems that we face on the college campuses. This is an actual office at Marshall University in Huntington, West Virginia, where we used to work. And notice the door there, it says lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender outreach. There's an office dedicated just to that. And so not only are these students being bombarded with all the philosophical isms in their classrooms, but they have all this type of thinking. You have competing faiths on our college campus. This is a Newman Center at Marshall University. This is, I think, somewhere in the state of South Carolina, but the Mormons often will have buildings on or near the campus. I frequently saw Mormon missionaries in the Student Center at Marshall, all right, trying to reach the students to what they believe. Of course, you have all the temptations, and I don't need to really get into that. I think you know about the college lifestyle and everything involved with that, the immorality, the drinking, the drugs, the fraternities and sororities, and everything associated with that. So the young people are bombarded with all of this, all right? And for the first time, in many cases, if they grow up in a good Christian environment, they're bombarded with this, and they have to deal with it. Now, the next point would be the name of Christ. Psalm 106, verse 8 says, "Nevertheless, he saved them for his name's sake, that he might make his power to be known." It's all about the Lord Jesus Christ. It's not about us. For 2 Corinthians 4:15 says, "For all things are for your sakes." Paul is talking to the Corinthians. In context, he's talking about everything that he has done, everything he has suffered. He does it all for their sakes, all right, that they might come to Christ. But that's not the ultimate goal, that the abundant grace might, through the thanksgiving of many, redound to the glory of God. In other words, yeah, they would be saved, and that's a blessing, but ultimately their salvation leads to something much higher and much more important, and that is the very glory of God. As these people are saved, they begin to give praise to God. They begin to give thanksgiving to God, and God gets glory from that. It's been said that missions exist because worship doesn't, and that ultimately is the goal, the glory of God. Let me move again to our nation's colleges and universities. Years ago, when a lot of our schools were founded, they were giving glory to God. Again, I mentioned this morning, but 88 of the first 100 colleges in the original colonies were founded to train ministers to preach the gospel, including all but one of the Ivy League schools. This is Harvard. This is a different quote than what I gave you this morning, but John Harvard said this: "Let every student be plainly instructed and earnestly pressed to consider well the main ends of this life and studies, to know God and Jesus Christ, which is eternal life." This is Princeton. And now Princeton lasted a lot longer than Harvard did. Well into the 20th century, it was true to the faith. John Witherspoon was an early president. He said, "Cursed be all learning that is contrary to the cross of Christ. Cursed be all learning that is not coincident with the cross of Christ. And cursed be all learning that is not subservient to the cross of Christ." Now again, I will assure you that is not their philosophy today when you think about these schools. So let me close one more verse, Malachi 1:11. "For from the rising of the sun even to the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering for my name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord of hosts." Someday God's name will be great in the entire world. It's coming sooner or later, and someday everyone on the planet will know the name of the Lord, and he will be honored appropriately at some point. You know, years ago, the name of Christ was famous on our nation's college campuses, and that's no longer the case. Today, it's used primarily as a cuss word, if it's used at all, the name of Jesus Christ on our college campuses. So the point is, why should he not receive glory on our college campuses, and why should we just give up the campuses to Satan without a fight? And so therefore, we have a great motivation to reach the students. Now, let me move on to the how. That's the whys. But how do you reach collegians for Christ? I believe that the very best way to do it is to begin a student organization that is officially chartered or officially sanctioned by the university. Much like what will happen is, much like with Paul in Ephesus, that will open doors to be able to use rooms, to be able to use all kinds of facilities, to be able to advertise on the campus, to use the campus bulletin boards for flyers. It just opens all kinds of doors and opportunities for you. And just like Paul, you can even use the rooms for Bible studies when they're not being used for regular classroom instruction. All right. There's at least 3 organizations right now in our fundamental circles, if you will, that are doing campus ministry. Now, there's other individual churches, and actually I think there's one missionary with Independent Faith Missions, if you want to add that as a 4th. But Campus Light only exists right now in the state of West Virginia. We're on 5 campuses that I'll show you in a second. although we've been in a couple other states in the past. Cross Impact Campus Ministries is in several states. It's growing. Started at Clemson University in South Carolina, but it's now in a number of states across the country. And then you have Campus Bible Fellowship through Baptist Mid-Missions. But all of these are ministries that would assist local churches in starting local church-based campus ministries. Again, we are currently on 5 campuses. West Virginia University is where it started. I was a student there in the 80s, and it started there in the early 80s. And since that time, we've moved to 5 other campuses in the state of West Virginia. You say, why Campus Light? What distinguishes us from some of the others? And again, this is a little bit of a review from this morning, but one is an emphasis on the local church. A lot of campus ministries really don't place a lot of emphasis there, and so I believe discipleship is stunted that way. We emphasize all the Great Commission, not just 1/3. And what I mean by that is, I have taken a look at some of the discipleship materials from some other ministries, and I was amazed at how little emphasis was placed, for instance, on baptism. It's not that they had the mode wrong, it's just that they didn't talk about it at all. It's almost like it didn't exist in the Bible. And then also we want to emphasize further discipleship. So if all you do is simply get professions of faith and you quit, you really are not doing the Great Commission. You have to do all 3 parts of that, and so we want to focus on that. Another distinctive would be an emphasis on sound doctrine. Campus Light makes no apologies for emphasizing doctrine. I mentioned this morning that with a lot of campus ministries, you have just literally a hodgepodge of different theologies and leadership nationwide. So we want to emphasize doctrine as well as biblical separation. And that last one, I will say this, that one really separates us or sets us apart from probably every other ministry on campus. Not that there are other ministries that proclaim the gospel. There are other ministries that see students saved, and we're thankful for that. We do not work against those other ministries. They're not our enemies. But nonetheless, they do some things we just can't do. For instance, we're probably the only group at WVU that wouldn't use rock music at their meetings. And so that really distinguishes us from some of the others. Our goals, first and foremost, to reach unsaved students for Christ. Let me give you a few examples. This is Eric. Eric is was part of our WVU group. He made a profession of faith fall semester last year. Kind of an interesting story. Someone found him on the internet and got into an internet conversation with him, realized that this guy needed some help spiritually, and somehow found us, and we were able to talk to Eric, and very shortly after we initially met him, he came to Christ. It was a guy that was already ready, which is kind of rare. These 2 young men are from Marshall University, Mike and Barry. Mike's on the right, Barry on the left. I literally met with Mike for probably about 3 years in a Bible study before he finally came to Christ. The guy on the left, his name was Barry. Now, at the time, Mike was the president of a fraternity at Marshall, and this is the actual fraternity house. And for 1 semester, we had a Bible study right here in this fraternity house. And Barry was one of the guys coming. And through Mike's influence, Barry eventually came to Christ, as well as a handful of his other fraternity brothers. And both of these guys are really growing. Both of these guys have spent significant time on the mission field. Mike has been to the Dominican Republic 2 or 3 times. Barry's been to China 2 or 3 times on short-term mission trips, has learned a little Chinese, and both of them have a great burden for foreign missions. So you can see how reaching students here can impact the world. Another goal would be to see student converts baptized and discipled. This is Haiping Lu from China. He was a Marshall University student. This is his family. I had a Bible study with Haiping where we literally started in Genesis 1:1. And we started there because he knew absolutely nothing about the Bible. And so I believe in laying a foundation first to help them understand the foundation. And we met for probably a couple years or so, and before he graduated, he had made a profession of faith. This is Haiping being baptized in our previous church in Huntington. Another goal would be to edify and encourage Christian students that are there. Now, we certainly do not recruit for our secular college campuses, whether in or out of the will of God. However, we do know that some Christians will end up there. And we want to be an encouragement to them and a help to them and a blessing to them and help them to reach their peers for Christ. And then the final goal would be to see all of our students involved in a good Bible-believing local church. For instance, Josh here, this is our church in Morgantown. He just graduated, but he was one of our officers last semester. But that is so important. I can't emphasize enough the need to get the students involved in the church and have the church involved in the lives of the students. This is actually something we do on Wednesday night, where some of the ladies of our church prepare a little meal an hour before the service for the students, and they come and enjoy the meal, and then we have a little Bible study afterwards. But several other families in the church are very instrumental in helping us when we do outreaches and activities, and I can't emphasize that enough, how important it is to get the students involved in the church. Most colleges and universities require this. We actually went to the campus on Friday here at the University of Delaware, and we talked to someone who was in charge of the student organizations, and sure enough, this is exactly what's required. You need a minimum number of students. Delaware, it happens to be 6. So you have to have 6 initial students that are willing to basically sign your paperwork saying that we want this organization. In addition, you typically have to have a faculty or staff advisor, someone to sort of be the in-between between the administration and the students. And then you have to submit a constitution. All right. Now those 3 things are not necessarily that hard. The advisor might be the hardest part, but if the Lord's in it, you know, He will always provide the people that you need there. However, this could potentially be a problem. This is something that you can pray about not only for here, but for all over our country. A lot of colleges and universities are now requiring what they call non-discrimination statements. You either have to sign a document or place into your constitution the idea that you will not discriminate for any reason. And most of the reasons we have no problem with anyway. But a lot of times they put in now sexual orientation and religious affiliation. Now, let me just explain. I don't care who comes to our Campus Light meetings. I don't care what their religious background. I don't care what they're doing or how they're living. If they want to come, praise the Lord. I'm glad they're coming. Anyone is welcome to come. But it's a little bit different when they're trying to tell us that you have to allow a Buddhist, let's say, or a practicing homosexual to be an officer in your student organization. And we actually are technically violating the rules at WVU and at Marshall and have done so for years, although they're not really enforcing it on us technically right now. We actually had a ministry at Virginia Commonwealth in Richmond, Virginia that was kicked off the campus over this. I have a friend that's led the Campus Bible Fellowship group at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, same story. Okay, they've been kicked off the campus because of the refusal to abide by this policy. So it's becoming harder and harder. It's something where if we don't get some legal precedents on our side, it may get to the point where we can't even officially be a campus ministry on these campuses. So that's a huge prayer request. All right. And again, I don't know exactly what Delaware requires on that one, but that's certainly something to pray about. However, once you get chartered, it opens all kinds of doors and all kinds of opportunities to minister on the campus. Here's some of the things that we do. We always have a weekly meeting. All right, this is sort of the focal point of your organization where you have a Bible study, perhaps a song or 2 testimonies, whatever. At WVU, we happen to meet on Friday night. It works for us there. Doesn't work if you have a campus where a lot of people go home on the weekends. But here is one of our typical meetings and some of the students that are there. We also meet once a week at Fairmont State University, which is a smaller school, about half hour away, but we actually meet during the day. On Thursday afternoons there during the lunch hour where there's no classes. And so here's some of our Fairmont State students. Another thing we do is a lot of individual or small group Bible studies. I think it's very, very important anytime a student makes a profession of faith to get them involved in a discipleship Bible study. And we try to do that. So we'll meet individually with students whenever we have the opportunity as well. We have some materials that some of them are actually on the table over there that you can look at. This young man is Jung. Jung is from Vietnam, and I met with him for a Bible study for quite a while before he made finally a profession of faith. Had the privilege of baptizing him myself. He is now back in Vietnam, but it all started with a Bible study, all right, where we met individually. We do sports outreaches. For instance, we have an annual indoor soccer tournament. Where we basically have this huge gym. We play 6-on-6 soccer indoors, and then we take a break to give the gospel. And inevitably, at least half of these students will be international students for our soccer tournament. Obviously, the international students love soccer. We literally will have Muslims and Buddhists and Hindus and Roman Catholics and everything you can imagine under the sun. They would probably never come to our Bible studies, but they will come to play soccer and endure, if you will, the gospel challenge, and it's a great opportunity to give them the gospel. And we've had some guys saved as a result, typically a follow-up through that. It's very, very hard to get them to respond right then and there on the spot because their peers are there and it's very difficult, but we're able to follow up. We always give out cards where they can indicate if they'd like to talk later, and we're able to follow up on them through that. We also do a basketball tournament, same idea. We used to do a 5-on-5 tournament every year at Marshall. Lately we've been doing 3-on-3s at WVU and Fairmont State. And same idea, we take a break in the tournament and give the gospel. This is a very recent tournament at Fairmont State, just this semester. Matter of fact, we had a guy on the spot. This is very rare, but he actually got up on the spot to talk to someone and made a profession of faith, and has been coming every week since to our meetings at Fairmont State. And so, again, a great opportunity to present the gospel through sports outreaches. International outreaches. These are outreaches specifically designed to reach international students. We have found that you don't typically reach internationals the same way you reach Americans. It's almost like we have two separate tracks. All right, now some things will overlap, but a lot of the things that we do for the internationals will be separate from the things that we do for the American students. For instance, we start out every semester with an international day. And what we do with that, we take time, and you guys have a wonderful facility to do that here with your field behind the church here. We take the opportunity to play some games like volleyball and soccer and just set up our field for things like that. And then we feed them lunch. This was the second time we've done it at WVU. We had over 40 international students this time. I think there was about 20 some odd different countries represented for that. And here you see, again, feeding them a meal. And what we do right after the meal, we actually get them all together. And I take about half an hour or so and basically just introduce the gospel. Nothing high pressure. I don't even give an invitation, but I just introduce them to what we believe. And we have literature there in many different languages they can take. We give them an opportunity to sign up for Bible studies. So the ones that are interested can let us know that way, and we'll be in contact with them. So this is sort of something where we generate some international contacts. We also, and here's, again, something else that we do at the end of the day here is what we call a flea market, only it's not one that you buy things. Everything is donated by a church family. And you have to understand, a lot of these international students come to the States with nothing more than their suitcases. And I have literally been in apartments where there is no bed. I mean, they may have a mattress on the floor. There's very little, if any, furnishings in these apartments. And so what we can do is try to meet some physical needs and use that as an opportunity to build a bridge to meet spiritual needs. And so we have household items donated, we have kitchen items donated, we have furniture donated, and we give it all away for free, all right, to the students who come. And here you see some of the students looking over some of the items. And at the end, obviously they can't carry it back to their dorms if you got something big, so we provide men with trucks to take it back to their dorms or their apartments or wherever it is they're going. And so it's a great opportunity to meet people and a great opportunity to show the love of Christ and generate some contacts. We also tell them about our English class because usually the week after the International Day we start our English class. And with that, my wife teaches, and we had about 12 to 15 different students, I think, attend this past year, and they weren't all there every week. But basically, a lot of these students need help with pronunciation and comprehension. They usually know their grammar better than we do, all right, because they've learned it, they've studied English in their home countries, but sometimes they do need help with pronunciation and things like that. So we have a little English class where we help them, and again, it's basically a tool to build bridges to them. Here's actually the last meeting. We didn't have as many. Everybody was busy, but the last meeting this semester. And then, you know, we also invite them to other things. We've had a couple of these students come to services or Campus Light meetings, you know, that first came to the English class. We've done in the past some sightseeing trips, typically over spring break. This was some Vietnamese students from Marshall, and we took them to Washington, D.C. a couple years. We took them to New York City one year. International students love to travel and visit American cities. And I love this picture here. This is the Vietnam War Memorial, and it was just a few years ago our country was at war with Vietnam. It's still a communist country. You still can't go there as a missionary, but here we have Vietnamese students right here with us that we can reach right here in the United States. And every year on this trip, we would take them to church on Wednesday night. And 2 of the 3 years, the pastors knew we were coming and had very good gospel messages. And this was a group from, I think it was a D.C. group, and then here's some of the pictures from New York City. But again, a great opportunity to build a bridge to some of these students. We've also taken some students to the Creation Museum outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I know that'd be a longer trip for you guys, but if you ever get a chance to go, it's fantastic. Not only is there a lot of science, but the gospel is very, very clear there. This particular trip we had mainly Americans, but 3 from China and 1 from Saudi Arabia. This is Muhammad. Obviously from Saudi Arabia, he's Muslim, doesn't have a choice exactly. But he's been coming faithfully to our English class. He hasn't come to any Bible studies yet, but he's come to our English class. And he very clearly heard the gospel there at the Creation Museum. We do an international Thanksgiving banquet each year. And the idea there is you feed the students a traditional American Thanksgiving dinner. And then we take the opportunity to explain the history of the holiday. And we talk about the pilgrims. And in talking about the pilgrims, it's very easy to talk about the gospel. And so we use that. We actually had about 70 this past year, and we literally, if we'd had any more, we couldn't have fit them in the room there. We barely had enough food, and I forget how many countries were represented, but to have 70 international students there in one room, and the opportunity to present the gospel was just amazing. So it was a real blessing. And here's some pictures. And here's some of our church people helping us with that. Again, we could not have done it without all the help from the church. My wife sort of got everything organized, but we had all kinds of helpers that day. And again, some of the students that were there. These are all from Iran, by the way. All right, reaching students from Iran. All right, again, you can't go to Iran and give out the gospel, but you can reach them here. This couple here, I have their picture. This was our first international day at WVU. After that international banquet, I started meeting with this couple with a Bible study. They were interested in that. And just within about the last month or so, they have made a profession of faith in Christ. And that is so exciting. Sonny and Carmen, that's not their real names, but they're both from China. And we hope to slowly but surely see them more involved with the church and obviously get baptized and things like that. But that's been a real blessing. Canvassing outreaches. As a student organization, you can set up tables. For instance, in the Student Center, you can have tracts and literature. You can do surveys. You can do all sorts of things like that, all right, as a student organization. You may even get permission to hand out tracts on the campus and different things like that. But all kinds of things that you can do to reach students with the gospel. And then we have a retreat. We typically go to the Wilds for the college and career retreat each fall and each spring. And here's some of the groups that we've taken to the Wilds. We've not only taken Americans, but we've taken unsaved international students. And that's fantastic to get them to the Wilds, and they always come away with a lot of questions. This was our most recent group from WVU that we took down there. But the students have a lot of fun. They're away from the world. They're challenged by the Word of God, and it's always a great weekend. And so we thank the Lord for that opportunity. Then, of course, we do have service and fellowship activities. Some of them are service-oriented. Some of them are just fun. We happen to, every Friday night after our Bible study, we have some sort of an activity, whether it's something in someone's home or whether it's something like miniature golf or whatever it may be, but it provides sort of an alternative to the parties and gives them something to do and gives us an opportunity for fellowship. So we do a lot of those as well. Even taken whitewater rafting trips and things like that in the past. So our college campuses are very needy mission fields. All right, and again, you have one right here in your backyard, a mission field of 17,000 plus, whatever it is when you include everyone. What a mission field that's right in your backyard. So let me conclude with this. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:22-23, to the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I have made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. And this I do for the gospel's sake, that I might be partaker thereof with you. So the all men obviously includes secular college students. So let me just close with this question. What role would God have you to play in reaching collegians for the sake of His name? So I hope you'll give that some thought.